offer one-to-one consultancy calls with people and I help them with their Instagram pages, right? And one of the main things I've noticed through doing that and helping different people on a one-to-one basis is that a lot of people don't realize that different Instagram features require different types of content. So most of the time people message me like, hey, can you do a video on like content strategies and all that kind of good stuff? But in order for us to get to that stage, we first need to realize that the different parts of Instagram require different types of content. So that's why in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down every single Instagram feature and I'm going to tell you how you should be using them and what type of content you should be posting on them. So if that sounds like something you are interested in with, then please keep on watching. Let's get to it. So before I get to the tips, if you're ever unsure on how you can access any of the features that I mentioned during this video, all you have to do is click the plus icon on the top right hand corner. Okay, let's tackle the first Instagram feature. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about, let's get a nice easy one out the way, is your posts or your feed as some people call it. Some people call it your grid, but basically we're talking about the main content on your Instagram page. Now, this content can take different formats. For example, you can have a single post, your most classic format, or you can have a carousel, and the limit of images that you can use on a carousel is 10, or you can upload videos, and videos can be between 3 to 60 seconds long. So those are the different formats. When it comes to the objectives or kind of like the main reason for your feed and what you should be thinking about, in my opinion, your feed or your grid, that is your shop window. So you've got to think about your Instagram as a store in general. Like, yes, it's online, but you know, that's where most stores are now anyway. I couldn't tell you the last time I went into a physical shop. So you've got to think of it as a store, and it's a store for your brand. Whether you're an actual business or whether you're a personal brand, it doesn't matter. It's a store for your brand, right? So when people land on your page, it's like they've walked into your store. So they're going to look around, they're going to shop around, and they're going to decide whether or not they're going to hang around to purchase from you. In this context, it's them deciding if they're going to hang around and follow you, which is why some elements of your page, in particular your grid and your feed posts, are so important. Those are your shop window. That is your opportunity to be like, hey, this is what I'm about. This is the kind of content I deliver. If you follow me, this is what you're going to get from me on a regular basis. So I've preached about this in a previous video when I talk about how to get your first 1,000 followers, but it's really important that your top 9 photos are like insane. Tip-top shape. You've got to make sure they look amazing, because that's what people see when they land on your page. And if they look good, they'll hang around. They might check out your other content, they might scroll, but at the end of the day, if they don't like those top 9, they're not going to do any of that stuff. In terms of examples of content for your feed, I feel like this will probably come naturally to a lot of people, because this is probably one of the most used or most known features of Instagram, because it's been there since, you know, the beginning. I was going to say the beginning of time. No, just the beginning of Instagram. But in terms of examples of content, if you are an influencer or a content creator, you know, this is your opportunity to really shine and share really high quality content which is related to your niche. If you're a business owner, this is a really great opportunity for you to show really high quality campaign shots alongside, you know, user generated content. Another marketing buzzword, you know, I like to throw those in, but that basically means content that your customers or your ambassadors have created. Think of it as your opportunity to put your best foot forward and your favorite content, what really represents you and your brand. That's what should be going on your grid. My biggest tip for feed posts is quality over quantity. I think that's a general tip in just life, but I think especially when it comes to your feed posts and your grid on Instagram. Instagram tell you a whole lot of things about what you should be posting every week. It's literally like, you're gonna be posting X amount of grid posts, then I want you to do an IGTV, and then you need to do a reel and blah, blah, blah. But they never recommend that you upload grid posts as often as you do things like stories. They actually think that grid posts should be uploaded 3 to 4 times per week, which gives you a little bit of rest room, a little bit of leeway for you to really plug a lot of energy into your feed posts and, you know, maybe make sure that the content you're creating is top notch and high quality. So that's my biggest tip for feed posts. Let's move on to talk about IGTV. Okay, so the format for IGTVs is up to 15 minutes unless you upload on IGTV from a desktop, in which case I believe it's up to an hour. The objective of your IGTV content should be to tell a story. So let me just put this into perspective when it comes to an IGTV and, you know, really try and bring to life why it's so important to tell a story on this format. An IGTV can technically be up to 60 minutes, as we said. That is 1 hour. I don't know why I'm saying that like you don't know that 60 minutes is 1 hour, but I want you to really let that sink in. Think about your favorite TV show, right? So like Game of Thrones or like Grey's Anatomy. I'm just trying to think of really popular TV shows. One of my personal favorites, You, okay? Great series on Netflix. think about how long those episodes are, because most of the time they're like 45 minutes to an hour. And then think about how much actually happens in those episodes. Like, if you're familiar with You, within the space of 45 minutes, Joe has probably fallen in love twice and killed 3 people within just the hour of that show. And IGTV are saying, hey, you have up to an hour worth of video content that you can produce for this format. That should be such a huge signal to you that, like, Jesus, I've got to get my storytelling game on absolute lock when it comes to my IGTV. It needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end at the very least, but you've got to be planning stuff out. You've got to be storyboarding. You've got to be thinking about, what is the objective of this content that I want to share? What is the hook? Why are people going to want to watch this? It's a big deal, like, it's a big production, I'm not gonna lie to you. And the thing about IGTVs is that they're quite polished as well. So they're not for the faint-hearted. I always say that when I talk to my clients who also have YouTube channels, I personally, people might disagree with this, I personally think that it's not as big of an issue if you don't have a lot of IGTVs when you have a YouTube channel. Is this my way of giving myself an excuse to not create IGTVs? Maybe it is. But in my opinion, you don't need both, because YouTube is long form content, and it's very similar to what IGTV is. Like, one of the key differences is that obviously IGTV is in vertical format. So yeah, IGTV is not for the faint-hearted, but Instagram will reward you if you use it. So if you're up for the challenge and you're going to put a lot of effort into your IGTV, then absolutely go for it. Let's talk about Instagram stories. In terms of the format of Instagram stories, each clip can be up to 15 seconds long. However, if you go on a bit of a monologue like I like to, it will allow you to record for up to a minute, and it will just break down your content into 15-second clips, right? Instagram stories, the purpose behind it and kind of your objective for your Instagram story content should be to build authentic connections with your audience. Instagram stories is where you share like your raw behind the scenes life. It's a real opportunity for your followers to get to know you on a deeper level, which is something which is difficult to do on Instagram. I've always said that. It's far easier to do it on platforms like YouTube, because you get to know the YouTubers you're watching, because, you know, it's long form content. But on Instagram, that's a lot harder because it's very much static images majority of the time. But with features like stories and the other video features out there on Instagram, you get a really cool opportunity to build a really authentic connection with your audience. And you can do things which actually you can't do on YouTube, which is add interactive elements. You can add a poll, you can have a question box, you know, you can put a countdown on there. So there's actually loads of really cool stuff that you could do on it. And it's all about showing your real self and being authentic and being genuine. So when you compare that to IGTV, where it's a lot more polished, your Instagram stories are a lot more raw and authentic. Great examples for Instagram story content are things like, you know, you recording your daily walk every day. It's really great when you record something that you do on a regular basis, so then it builds a routine with your followers. So they know that if they log on to your channel at 9 a.m, you're going to be going for your morning walk and talking about, you know, politics from today. Depends on who you're following. But, you know, it's good to build that kind of routine with your followers if you can. But things like going for a walk, what you ate that day, what books are you reading, just behind the scenes, what is your life like? If you're a brand, then it's things like packaging your orders, giving a sneak peek of your new products, that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's talk about Instagram Lives. So in terms of the format of Instagram Lives, it previously was purely reserved for just one-on-one conversations, which means there could be 2 people on a live. Now you can invite 3 people on a live, which means that there could be a 4-person conversation going on, including yourself. Instagram Lives can last up to 4 hours, which is crazy. Like, I don't do interesting enough stuff or even have enough interesting stuff to say that would keep people logging into my live for 4 hours, but you know, people are more interesting than me. I've learned to accept that, but they can last up to 4 hours long. The purpose behind your Instagram Live strategy or Instagram Live content should be to be really transparent. And again, that authentic word is popping up because there's nowhere to hide on an Instagram Live. So if you're willing to go on an Instagram Live as a brand owner, as an influencer, as, you know, a service, if you're willing to go on an Instagram Live and talk about what you do, I think it shows real vulnerability, it shows real authenticity, and it also gives you a great opportunity to open a dialogue in a way that's not possible with your other features. So whilst Instagram stories, you can do things like have a question box and people can ask you questions. When using that method, you still have the opportunity to just go through your questions and pick which ones you want to answer. With an Instagram Live session, that's a lot harder to do. If you're getting questions, repeat questions from your customers or your followers or your clients, whatever, on an Instagram Live, you kind of need to answer them, you know? So it's not one one to be taken lightly. Do not jump on Instagram Live if you are not prepared. If you're just talking about life, then I guess that's fine. But, you know, if you are a service provider or your brand, or there's something, you know, a bit more at risk there, then I recommend preparing for your Instagram Live. But it's a really great way to open a dialogue with your audience and to just really be, again, authentic and transparent, which everyone values that. In a brand owner, a content creator, doesn't matter who you are, everyone loves that. Great examples of Instagram Live content are things like Q&As or interviews, or when you're partnering with someone else who has a similar audience to you and you're both kind of having a chat as a way to get exposure to different audiences. That's also a really effective use of Instagram Live. So obviously I had to talk about Instagram Reels. Sometimes I don't like talking about it because everyone talks about it so much, but for good reason, You may not know this, but Instagram actually came out and officially said, we are pushing Instagram Reels more than everything else. And the reason why we're doing that is because we think Instagram Reels is the best opportunity for small creators to gain a lot of reach and like blow up and gain a big audience. I kid you not, they actually came out and said that. So beforehand, myself and every other online marketing like expert, you know, was saying Instagram Reels, that's the place to be. And we knew that was true, but like now they've actually come out and said it like, oh no, you're right, it actually is the place to be, and we are actively promoting it. Like we are favoring this feature over any other feature. So if that's not a reason to get on Instagram Reels, I really don't know. I don't know what is. Format for Reels is that they're no more than 30 seconds long. In terms of the objective, in my opinion, it is to basically gain reach. There's a great opportunity to go viral when it comes to Reels for the reasons that I just explained. But also it's a really good opportunity to show your personality a bit and get fun and do something creative. Obviously, everything you're doing on Instagram is creative. It's a very visual platform. But Reels is an amazing opportunity to get really creative and have a lot of fun with the content you're creating and share your messaging or your personality in a different way, a different engaging way. My top tips for using Reels is to get creative and use trending music. You know, we all know what trending music is on Reels. Half the songs that are out nowadays, like new songs, I sound like such an old person, but it's true. Any new songs on the radio, I only really know them because they're part of like a Reels challenge or like a TikTok challenge, like that. That's why I know what they are. Which brings me on to some examples of good Reel content, which are things like sharing value in a really interactive and engaging and fun way, but also hopping on a trend or a challenge. I mean, we all know by now that that's a great way to blow up, not just on TikTok, Huns, it's a great way to blow up on Instagram too. Okay, so Instagram story highlights. I feel like sometimes people miss this one off because they think it's covered in Instagram. You see when you land on people's pages, they're basically an album, if you will, or a playlist of a page's best content. I actually think that is the best way to look at it, is like it's a playlist of your best Instagram story content. So the format of these is that you can have as many like highlights as you want. I personally don't like it when there's more than like 10 to 15 because no one's going to look at the old ones, so they kind of become redundant. But when it comes to the individual highlights themselves, you can have up to 100 photos or videos on there, which is a lot. You shouldn't need more than that, let me tell you. If you have even more than 50, I hate to break it to you, but no one's clicking that long. So I'd cut those down, unless you're like famous, which you might be, in which case how cool that I've got a famous person watching my video. But unless you're famous, like it's rare that anyone's clicking that far into your story anyway. So the objective behind your kind of content for your Instagram story highlights it's kind of twofold, right? Because you've still got the objective of your story content, which is, as I mentioned, to be authentic and build really good relationships with your audience through really raw video content. So that objective remains, but hopefully you've ticked that objective already because the content you're putting in your highlights has already gone live in your stories, right? When it comes to which stories you're selecting for your highlights or even how you're grouping them, you need to make sure that the stories that you're selecting are your best pieces of story content. Similar to your grid or your feed posts, these story highlights are one of the first things that people see when they land on your page. So we've got to go back to that shop window analogy, right? They've just got to your shop window or they've just walked in your store. They don't know whether they're going to actually buy from you yet, or in this case, follow your page. Your highlights are one of the things that they're going to look at in addition to your top 9 posts. They're going to look at your highlights and they're going to be like, okay, I like her personality, or oh, she produces really great content within this niche, or I really like that behind the scenes content from that brand. That's one of the things they're going to look at, and it's another opportunity for you to capture their attention and persuade them to follow you. Okay, so Instagram guides. This is like a little one that not many people use at the minute. It's slowly being pushed out. Fun fact, did you know that it was actually originally produced for travel content, and then they started to push it out to kind of broader categories like health and well-being and stuff like that, and now it's available to everyone. So think of Instagram guides as like a cross between blog posts and carousels. Because what Instagram guides allows you to do is to select some of your favorite posts which are related to one theme and put them all in one area, which is where it looks a bit like a blog post. So say you're a travel account and you just came back from Mexico. Mexico's on my mind because we've just cancelled our trip to Mexico for the 3rd time this year. 3rd time. Don't worry guys, holiday's still pending. Keep an eye on my stories. So you would click on the top right hand corner, the little plus icon that I told you about earlier on in the video. You'd select guides, then you would select all of the relevant posts that you have shared which are related to your Mexico trip. And then you would order them all and then give a little context to each. And then anytime someone's like, give me some Mexico travel recommendations, you can just direct them to your guide. Think of it that way. Each guide includes a cover image, a title, an introduction, and then you have the option to add descriptions underneath your posts as well. In my opinion, one of the best uses for guides is to really establish yourself as a trusted advisor, which is something that a lot of content creators want to be, but also the whole trusted angle is something what a lot of brands want to be as well. So different examples of content that you can put on your guides are things like gift guides, travel guides, as I mentioned. You can do your top 10 favorite smoothie machines. I don't always come up with the best stuff when I think on top of my head. Your top 10 favorite books. I just looked at my bookshelf and thought books. Oh, it's late in the day. I usually record a lot earlier in the morning. I'm a lot more sharp that way. But that's some examples of how you can use guides. And that's it. That's the end of the video.